Hey, this is Anton from Reignite Capital. If you want to learn how to use your small acts to build an empire, you should listen to the Small Acts podcast with my good friend, Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. Okay, Small Axe people, it's me, and today I'm hanging out with a friend and a partner, Antone Heyward. What's up, Anton?
Hey, how's it going, Nico?
Good, my man. All right, so the listeners do not know you. I know you because you're a partner of mine on one deal, and we've been speaking for a few years now. But let's give the listeners some form of background about you. So take a couple of minutes to kind of go over how you got to where you are today. Talk a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I am a Florida native. I live in St. Pete right now, originally from Miami. I spent a lot of time in my career as a IT professional, so working at a global manufacturing company. And, during my stint at this company, I'd been there over 20 years. I at one point figured out that I had to kind of do things on my own in order to build that generational wealth that a lot of people try to build up, or that financial freedom. And I started learning different things, reading different books, and eventually figured out that real estate was the way to go, right? I wasn't really a big successful trader, getting into stocks, but with real estate, I was able to get into real estate, start buying properties, rent them out after doing a little bit of value add, and it became profitable when I could go ahead and get those cash flowing. I got my real estate license, something that as an investor you don't really have to do, but I got my real estate license as part of my learning of real estate. I still have my license. I'm focused on commercial real estate right now, multifamily mostly, but I do some retail and industrial land stuff as well.
Awesome, Anton. Thank you so much for that. Now, why do you like real estate?
Well, I like real estate because, one, it's a tangible asset. It's something I can literally drive to or physically touch and see. So for me, it's more real of an asset. So when I put my money into it, I know that there's something that's being backed up with a real asset. I can actually force appreciation by adding value to real estate. So that's another thing where, in comparison with stocks, you don't really know who's running the company, or if you do know who's running the company from a personal standpoint, you don't know how they're doing the day-to-day activities, and then you don't really have much influence on that. So I like real estate because I can influence kind of the appreciation in that property by adding value to it, and it's a tangible asset.
Awesome, man. Now, let's talk a little bit about what have you ever lost any money on deals?
Have I lost money on deals? You could say I've gone through a couple cycles where in the 2007, 2008 era, when I did have some rentals where I had one go into foreclosure due to some circumstances where my partner was not paying the rent. And I found that out a little too late within the process. So that would be one time I would say I don't wouldn't say I lost money, but what happened was going through that foreclosure, it did have a certain number of years where I could not get a loan, or it was harder for me to actually get financing on properties with that foreclosure showing up on my credit.
I totally hear it, man. Here we go.
All right.
So like talk a little bit about the difference between like Airbnb, single family housing versus multifamily, and why you like either one.
Okay. Yeah. So when I first started, I did have single family homes, and that's where I, got into real estate, buying single family homes, renting them out. Eventually, I live in the St. Pete area, as I mentioned before. I got into short-term rentals because this area is a pretty big for vacationing. People come here for the beaches, for going to Orlando and things like that there. So the difference between the long-term rental that I had, where I was just renting them out on an annual basis, is that the transiency of the property is pretty much the same throughout the entire year. When you do short-term rental, the ins and outs of people coming in, the guests, is much more frequent. Sometimes it could be you have 5 to 10 different people coming into your property each month. So there's a lot of turnover that happens there. You have to furnish the property as if they're just coming in, they're opening up the door, and they want that homey feel. So you have to furnish the entire house. You typically have to have certain amenities that entice people to rent you versus other people. So there's a lot more involved in doing the short-term rental, where you have to get it all set up and furnished with everything that's needed for the people to just come in and stay, versus the long-term rental that you would typically do, which is a lot easier to do. So I recently made the switch back to long-term rentals, just because there is so much work that happens on the short-term rentals, and the vacancies started to go up in our area where people wasn't traveling here as much. And then there was a lot more short-term rentals on the market. So the long-term rental is a lot easier at where I'm at now. And multifamily is scaled even better than, say, the long-term rentals that I have set up here. One, you have multiple units under one roof. So typically, if you need to do maintenance, you can schedule your maintenance for a couple different units, and you can go out there once and do everything at that point. Also, rents scale a lot better because I have more people paying rent under one roof. If I have one single family home where the tenant actually vacates and it's empty, that's 100% vacant. Where if one person leaves in a 4-unit or higher, the vacancy is much less, and the impact of that vacancy is a lot less.
Yeah, thanks, Antone. What about, are there any restrictions in St. Pete against short-term rentals?
Yes, there is, and it's pretty complicated here. So St. Pete is somewhat easy because they did set up the rule where you can only rent short-term 3 times out of the year. Everything after that 3 times, it has to be 30 days or more. But there are some pockets of St. Pete that are unincorporated that the rules could be completely different. So it depends on the zone you're in and where you're located. And that's the complexity of short-term rentals these days, is that you really have to investigate and do your research on what's allowed, but it's never 100%, because in 3 months, 6 months, a year, those rules can change.
Yeah, makes sense. And what about like furnishing them? Do you furnish them?
Yes, the short-term rentals were fully furnished. So the bigger the actual home, the more you have to put into it, which is why it's usually more profitable to do smaller, say, either studios, 1 bedrooms. It's typically more profitable to do those. But because I wanted to own my properties, I typically went with something that was a 2-1 or a 3-2 that was more family oriented. So they were easy to do long-term rentals on.
Now, let me ask you something else. What about the financing on a short-term rental? Is it any different than like a residential house or multifamily?
Yes, there are some, they are different nowadays. When I first started, there was no, say, lending products for short-term rentals, but they do have some lending products out there today where they will lend on based on what they see in the area and on Airbnb and using some other tools, they would just assess what the rental income could be, and they will actually do financing based on that. So similar to like a DSR type of loan where you have to have a certain amount of income that comes in when you're doing your financing. They will do the research and they will figure out how much income you can get, and then they will base the loan on that.
Yeah, that's what I was told as well. Do you look at the deal as a short-term rental for, I know you're not really looking much anymore, but when you originally were you looking at them as short-term rentals, or were you, because the income is very different if you do have a long-term rental.
Right, it is different. I did not. I made sure that when I got into the property that I could rent it, that it made sense renting it long term, doing an annual rental on it. So if it did not make sense doing long term, then I would not buy the property. Now there are some that will get into the property based on what they would see from a short-term rental perspective. And I think that's a bit more risky and speculative. So to each their own, but I myself, when I assess a property or analyze a property for short-term rental, I make sure that it will be profitable as a long-term rental first, and then I get into that property.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, if I was out there, if I was brand new and I was looking to either get into real estate and I'm not sure what I want to do yet, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, what kind of tools or education should I be looking for now to help me kind of make my decision?
So there's plenty of tools out there. You can go to Airbnb. So if you're thinking about short-term rental, I would go to Airbnb's website, look at the area that you're looking to actually buy a home, see what kind of rent rates others are getting that are already on the platform, how many properties, how many units, what the unit types are, put all this stuff in a spreadsheet and just work the numbers. It all comes down to underwriting. Whether you're doing single family rentals from an annual standpoint, there's the short-term rentals, there's midterm. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the property depending on the regulations, local regulations, but underwriting is the key. So look at the property, see what it can get from long-term, short-term, midterm, and then also check these tools like Airbnb. You can go to VRBO, you can go to booking.com. There are some other tools out there like AirDNA as well that will give you some metrics and numbers. Do your underwriting, and if you do enough of those, use enough of those tools and get the numbers, you can figure out which one will work best for you.
Yeah, what underwriting tools do you use?
I typically just use a spreadsheet. If it's like for a single family home, there's a spreadsheet that I've kind of built up throughout the years where I can put in the number of units, I can put in the income, all the different expenses, if I'm going to get financing, what the mortgage would be, interest rate, so on and so forth. I just put all that information into a spreadsheet and it'll plop out what the cash flow would be for the property. And then again, I would go to the other tools to figure out whether it makes sense to do any kind of short-term or midterm. If I'm looking at multifamily, there's also, again, underwriting tools that you can use. I like the Michael Blanc one that's out there, but there's Synthesis and some other tools.
Yeah. Thanks, Anton. I'd like to say I like Michael Blanc as well. I'm also making my own, as my listeners know, working with Bill Ham's partner to make my own. Did you happen to attend his recent workshop this weekend?
I did not. It was my grandson's birthday this weekend. You
Oh,
might have
cool.
seen me post on Facebook a couple of videos, but yeah, I spent time with family.
Cool, man. And let's say, so people out there, my listeners are looking to get on a team. A lot of them are trying to join somebody's team and figure out the best way to get involved in this game, in the multifamily game. Do you have any advice on how to do that?
Yeah, so typically you can find a lot of different groups. Start one with your local groups, people that are close to you that you can actually see, you can talk to face. Go to these local groups, network, meet with these people, see who's regulars, who comes out to these different local meetings more regular because you know they're a bit more serious. And yeah, just talk to people in these local groups. That would be your first start. Beyond that, you can go into Facebook and do some research. You can Google different groups. You'll find different coaching programs that are out there from Rod Cliff to Jake and Gino and so on and so forth. Just do your due diligence on figuring out who's in these groups, what the reviews are. Go to Bigger Pockets, search around there and ask questions about the different groups and get feedback. And yeah, from there, reach out maybe to one of these groups, which is what I did when I wanted to get into multifamily and be serious about it. I wanted to get coaching. So I did research on all these platforms, Jake and Gene, to Bigger Pockets, got on Bigger Pockets, did some searches around, eventually figured out who I wanted to go to. Then I called them, interviewed them, even though a lot of them say that they will interview you first. You're really interviewing them because you're the one handing your money over to them for uh, either coaching or networking, being a part of a group that have other like-minded people who are doing this type of investing. So yeah, interview the different groups that are out there. Go to one. Sometimes you might be able to even get like someone who's already in the group, or they will let you come in to maybe one meetup or something like that for free. Yeah, just different tips on what you can do when you're evaluating these groups. But yeah, just spend a lot of time before you throw your money at one of these things for sure.
Yeah, I like that advice. You also did some formal, I guess, is it formal education, getting the real estate license? Is that formal? And how would you compare that to like the Jake and Gino education platform?
Well, well, getting your license for real estate is, yeah, you call it formal, but it's no different than most certification type
Mm,
type I guess trainings and certifications, licensing, et cetera. I've been through the IT world, so I've had many of certifications around technology. The training that you get for real estate is typically focused again on passing a test, where stuff like the Jake and Gino is more real world. This is what they have done and what they've learned through experience, real world experience, not to pass a test, but to actually buy a property right, operate that property right, finance that property, so on and so forth. So the difference would be one's more, the goal is just to achieve, a piece of paper, where the other one is real world experience on boots on the ground type knowledge, that I think is both are good, but the that real world knowledge is actually a bit better, I would say. Um, we do learn some stuff in the different licensing programs, say like for the commercial stuff, where you're doing some underwriting, um, just like you would do in, say, a Jake and Gino program, and they teach you the underwriting, but it's really light. So yeah, the groups that you learn from Jake and Gino is much more deeper knowledge on the ground type real world stuff.
Yeah. And I am a person who learns best by doing. And sometimes that means I have to make mistakes and just get involved some way. And it's just that's how I learn best. If I'm sitting there reading a book, I can get a lot of knowledge from it, but I need that real world practical application of that knowledge to actually ingrain it in my DNA. So I'm a fan of that as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about what your major roles are on your projects.
My major roles. So my major role is typically bringing capital to a project. So I bring capital to the project. I do investor relations. I like to dig a lot into the systems because coming from the IT world, big on processes, making processes efficient, documenting things, automating things. So most of my stuff is or roles within a project, if I'm on it with a team, are related to bringing capital, working with investors, and then also working with the different systems that are out there to drive efficiency within the business of real estate.
I feel like what you've brought to our team only in the short amount of time that you've been with us is a real solid foundation for what's happening in the back end and just kind of clarifying everybody's roles, making things a little bit more systematized on the back end. And it's been very helpful. I've been learning a lot from you. So what tools do you use to do that kind of stuff?
Tools that I use. So right now on the different teams, they're all different. So on the team that we're on, we're using Asana, obviously some of the Google workspace stuff. On other projects, I've used ClickUp, I've used Notion, I use Airtable to do some things. There's plenty of different tools that are out there. AppFolio is one. InvestNext is another tool that's out there for investors. And Cashflow Portal is another one as well. So those are typically the tools. Without getting into, Excel is obviously a big one. I think everyone just uses Excel by default.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't do anything without those spreadsheets. But what's like your favorite tool to use being an IT guy?
Being an IT guy, my favorite tool, let me see. I would say at this point in time, it's actually Notion. There's a lot of stuff that I can do with that. It's an all-in-one type of workspace tool. It's big on its database features. So I like the database functionality within Notion. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that one. That would probably be my biggest one currently that I like digging into because I can really mold that tool to do pretty much anything.
That's so cool, man. I've got to check it out. I haven't even checked it out, so now I got something to look at. Thank you. All right, Antone, we're going to transition to our final question, and then we're going to get the listeners some form of contacting you. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. I know you have grandchildren, but now you have great-great-grandchildren, and they wanted to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
All right, this is obviously a tough one here. So the title of this book, well, not too sure. I don't know if I could think of a title right now. I would want the book, at least the contents of it, to, if it's about me in general, to basically say that their great grandfather or myself was a humble, honest, hardworking person that really took care of everyone as well as myself. So I'm big on taking care of myself so that I can take care of others. But yeah, I guess the title would be
The
humble, a humble, hardworking individual.
Yeah, I see it, man, and I feel it. You embody that for sure. Thank you so much for everything you do for us, and I can't wait to continue doing deals with you. Let's give the listeners some form of contacting you.
All right. Yeah. If you want to contact me, I'm big on LinkedIn. You can just do a search for Antone Heyward or Reignite Capital. My website is reignitecapital.com. You can see over where is it right here, this QR code. You can scan the QR code if you're doing video right now. But reignitecapital.com, you can get in touch with me there.
Awesome, Antone. Thank you so much. And we are going to continue chatting and rocking and crushing these deals. Everybody out there, reach out to Antone. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Nico.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.